You are tuned to the Old Tube Radio Network.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen?
Greetings to you.
Wherever you are, for music and the latest news from home and from afar, the station for you is
OTR, Old Tube Radio.
The station for you is
OTR.
The station for you is OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network. I had to run around the back of the equipment rack here and turn on the fan, as we're still like 84 degrees in the room here. I was hoping some of that nice breeze would come through the window. We'll have to see how that works out, as we're still like 84 degrees. Hey, I can hear myself. Wait a minute. I was hoping some of that nice breeze would... Got some sound card issues here. Only one of me at a time. What I do hope that we have more than one of tonight are tube radios, and we will be listening for that on your Old Tube Radio Network.
45. 25.
And there we go, 45 and 25. Hello, Jerry. Go ahead, take a step up into the green room. We will be right with you. But we will ask that SWL 45 Paul head over to the air chair. Paul up in North Fork, which is about 40 miles or so north and east of my location up in the foothills, has a great collection of radios. Hope we will hear some of those tonight. I think we're going to get one right now. Hello, Paul, if you can hear me, over.
Oh, no problem. It's stirred up. I shouldn't say it real loud, but it's stirred up pretty nice up there. I can hear you just fine. Anyway, I want to check in my general radio telephone, Super MC9.
Oh, the MC9. We have not heard a 9 in a while. We get a lot of 11s. We like the 11s, but into the Super Series, the Master Control 9, I will see if we have a photo of that. Sometimes we get lucky, and I can pull up one that's actually from your collection, maybe even the one on which you are talking. We're getting close. I'll go over to you for a transmission on the General Radio Telephone Super MC9, over.
Okay. I can't see it on the screen. They flipped me over to YouTube for some reason. I don't know what that is. I'll get back to you. But anyway, I'm sure that's my radio on there. Yeah, this is 24 channel. They did a lot of improvements on it. I'm saying improvements on it, and a lot of goodies on it. It's the one that has the GPML 800 tube in the thing. Very expensive tube. That's a really good job. And a lot of other good things. I'm sure you can take some parts to protect you.
A lot of good things. The Super MC9 10 tubes, continuously tunable. That still has the tunable receiver, huh? Oh, okay. That I did not know. Can go 12-volt DC, 115-volt AC, and one of those 10 tubes is indeed V8 and the modulator ECLL 800. Sounding good. Signal's a little in my noise tonight, but I'm hearing you 100%. Not a problem. And indeed, we do have the photo from your great collection. Paul always figures a way to, up North Fork, where it's very beautiful up in the foothills, he puts the radios outside, and we get a little bit of the radios, the steampunk with the flora and the fauna at the same time. Looks like at least you're showing with this MC9, Super MC9, the original microphonium, but perhaps you have changed things around. Back to you.
Yeah, okay, well, this has a, yeah, I got you back again. This has that Turner aluminum ceramic microphone thing that takes everything. That can stock out on MC9. It's a CM-2, General Radio Telephone microphone. Big old heavy thing. And what do you want? I think the 72 has come out with it too, if I remember correctly. But anyway, they did put it there. You can see the stick drill in the front. It's not that woven metal, like metal stuff. They actually cut it into the front of the radio. And it kind of has, this has a crystal 24-slot position, which just has a 2660 puts in a crystal air control. It's interesting radio. I got so many good things here. Yeah, I think maybe you already went into the ECLL 800 tube. This thing also has that tuner bass band tuner on the back. Yeah, that's like a DFO on each channel. And it really works great. Anyway, that's about all I I got him. Saying back to you, Jack. Comment.
And it's sounding good here in Midtown. The comment, go ahead.
Yeah, Dennis, I couldn't help. Hello, Paul. I could not help but hear that the longer that Paul transmitted on that receiver, the louder that it got. It reminds me of a buddy. But anyway, Paul, no kidding, man. The longer you talk on that thing, you just got whatever the transmit tubes in there, it got happy, man. It just got louder and louder and louder. So anyway, just want to say that. Anyway, back to you guys.
All right, my guess is that it's a combination of the radio warming up and also a combination of Paul warming up. But this is his first radio. Our radio number one on the net here, General Radio Telephone Super MC9 with the original stock microphonium doing quite nicely. The audio on those series, the Super MC 8, 9, 11, 11A, 12, always did well. Didn't need lots of amplification as long as you could key the microphonium. Thanks for Radio 1, Paul. We'll go back to you for a comment, but always getting us started off with something exciting. Over.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure the thing is working. Last week was kind of disaster, of course, for the ship. It didn't make much difference. But I got everything working today, so it's forward anyway. Anyway, thanks a million for checking it in, Dennis. Sure appreciate it. Hi, Jerry.
And hello, Jerry, as well. We're going to make you radio number 2 here at 8:43. Be interesting to see what you've got for us tonight. Also want to say hello to those who are tuning in live at the video, DD21. Hey, I was actually around and able to listen to the old Tube Radio, your live stream tonight. It sounded pretty good. I was in a remote location, but I had my laptop with me checking out an internet stream, believe it or not. And you were the test. You guys were the test tonight. Downloading, downstreaming, really good. Station sounding great here in Central California. Mighty KUH, good evening, Brian, and all the good things at your location today. Picked up a Yaesu 101F today. The 101F, is that the low power version? Obviously, that was the last in the series, I do believe. I'm familiar with the EEE, the 101, 101B. Not sure about the F. I may have to pull up a picture of that one. Also, Timtron checking in early, 84 degrees. Well, that's what happens here sometimes. And it's not even summer yet. We're loving this. Tim is up in the Pacific Northwest listening to 27085, and they're hearing us in and out in Utah, so maybe that ducting E-skip will happen anyway. Thanks, Tim. And who else? TJ, of course. TJ, we are aware. TJ keeps count for us, the Jingle Singers. I think he may be working on the site for the Jingle Singers to make sure that they get their playbacks properly, and we will do a couple anyway. Thanks, TJ, for tuning in. Let's head over to radio number 2, stepping up into the air chair. Hello, Jerry.
Actually, it was moving down from the green room to the air chair recliner. Very comfortable. Anyway, Paul, and boy, that general radio was sounding great. 25 checking in on the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB sidebander, 2-piece radio. The red on the air light is on, and everything seems to be working, as my ex-German boss would say. And talking on a non-powered banana mic that I believe came with the Brownings. Boy, I don't know what else to tell you. I know you know this radio very well, but it does have CB, DHF, but it's kind of limited there. It's primarily, probably just a good old phone. It is a sidebander, both lower side and upper side, and which we are talking on 28.085. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, we're not on that Civil Air Patrol frequency. I was always wondering if the General Radio Telephone actually sold radios to people doing Civil Air Patrol, whatever you would do Civil Air Patrol for, or where you would do it. Maybe they kept putting that crystal in there because they were actually on the list to sell some radios. The receiver on the Browning Mark III 26.4, I don't think it would go down that far for Civil Air Patrol, but it had all the 23 channels and then more. I guess you could go to 40 channels on the receiver on the Mark III. So it had its fans as well. Sounding good in the air chair. And doing a good job here, getting the Browning Golden Eagle checked in. Always good to hear the Brownings. And it's always good for a net controller because I know which picture to bring up, and I can start writing even before you say your first word. Back to you, over.
Okay, Dennis. Anyway, thanks for checking it in, and thanks for doing that, and back to you.
All right, back to me in the studio. We are the Old Tube Radio Network, real radios glowing in the dark. We have been on the air Saturday nights around this time, 8 to 10, 8 to 11, every Saturday since the mid-1980s, trying to recreate what a lot of us remembered as I'd say the good old days. We'll just call it the old days of your 11-meter radio with the tube radios and kind of nice conversations, family gatherings, all that good stuff. Reliving that thanks to our tube radio operators that take the time and energy and money to keep all their radios up and running and share them with us, much like people do when they go out to the old car Friday night hamburger stand and they've got the fins and chrome and the Lincoln Continentals and the Buick Rivieras and all that good stuff. This is our fins and chrome tonight. Jingle singers, of course, want to let you know where you're tuned in and how to keep things going.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, your favorite spot on the dial by far is known to you as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
Hopefully the station for you is or has been the OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network. If you're just tuning in, we try to do this every Saturday. Feature the great grand tube radios from the Class D era. 1958, when the FCC banged the gavel and said, yes, there will be a Class D 11-meter radio service. Occasionally we will get some of the non-Class D radios, you know, the old Collins, the old Hallicrafters, the E.F. Johnsons. You get some of the Class D as well, which you may or may not hear if you tune into the AM windows in the evening over on 75 meters. Steve, hello, Steve, out there in Ohio talking about 3865, 3865, 3870, 75, 80, 85. Put on your upper and lower sideband and tune around until you hear the carrier insertion. Zero beat them and then go to the glorious AM mode and listen to the great audio, which we will hopefully be doing here with Radio 3 OTR listening. Hello, I think that was you, Paul, over.
Yeah, 45.
Oh yeah, sounding good now. Take a transmission.
Yeah, okay. If we got me everything, okay. I want to check in my other general radio telephones for tonight. It's the Super MC11.
That is sounding good. I think that Super MC11 may have a bit more signal than the MC9. It's got some great audio, as did the prior general radio telephone. I'll log you in here at 8:51, and give us a key down on that one. Over.
How about a Turner 350C on the thing? It's not a radio telephone microphone, but it seems to like it all right, so leave it that way. Now this is 11. This is the one that they recalled, or we're supposed to recall, and make them into the 11As. And it has an oscillator problem on the thing, and I think I might have got it pretty well cleaned up by changing the tubes on it, but you might still be able to hear it. Can you hear it on your end?
I hear it great. It is actually louder. If you listen to the stream, you will hear that it's coming in louder and clearer than the Super MC9. Has some real punchy audio, which I suppose is due to the microphone change. I was just trying to get a shot of the MC11 up there, and I do believe we are now into crystal controlled transmit and receive, no tunable. Looks like they might still be stamping the speaker grill out, but it sounds good. I'll maybe give you a frequency check, do a zero beat here on your next transmission, but it sounds great. You will love the sound of this radio when you hear the playback.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to know what I'm running on. I think I'm pretty close, but maybe not. I'll give it a bit more time to ready you to tune me in and everything. Anyway, this is like MC9. So do you have enough time?
Yeah, I got it zero. I didn't have to move it at all. As soon as I went to zero beat, you're right at 27085. I'm hearing a bit of oscillation. When I first heard that, I thought maybe there was another station coming in underneath you, but it does appear that there is and you'll hear in the playback, a little oscillation on the audio. I'm not sure if your amplified microphone, maybe it's up a bit too high, or we've got an impedance mismatch, but it's in there. It's under your audio, but I am detecting it now. Over.
Yeah, it's not an amplified. This is a standard microphone, ceramic mic, 350C Turner on the thing. So I'm glad it sounded good. At first, when I first got the thing, I know you told me it sounded terrible, so maybe we're improving on the thing. So anyway, yeah, that's back into the thing. Yeah, they're just like the 9, just exactly. Same tube and everything in it. Other than I think they beefed them up a little bit. Other than not the same tube. They had the same tube as up to 12 as that PCL 800. So anyway, that's about it. Thanks for checking it in, Dennis.
All right, boy. There was a directive early on that we were never supposed to tell anybody that their radio sounded terrible, even if it did. so if I said that, I apologize. There's no such thing as a terrible sounding radio if one takes the time to actually stop what they're doing on Saturday evenings, connect the coax, and put up with the likes of the old Tube Radio Net control, whoever it may be. Radio 3 is General Radio Telephone, the General Radio Telephone Super MC11. A bit of an oscillation in there with the audio, but underneath it, you will hear it on the playback. Not sure what's causing that. Could be a slight impedance mismatch on the transmit, but good signal. Definitely a little bit better signal than the MC9. The old Tube. Thanks, Paul. The old Tube Radio Network. We are standing by. Yeah, Skipland. This is Central California, the old Tube Radio Network, streaming audio live at oldtuberadio.net. We are here every Saturday at this time in Central California, talking with the vintage tube radios. I want to say hello also to SWL 147. Neil, I will get you checked in on the big board. Looks like we're having a little bit of E-skip conditions rolling through, and the Kakalaki is sounding good tonight.
Yeah, Dennis, who was the station checking in from Skipland?
I'm not sure. They probably couldn't hear my incessant babbling, but some of the big stations might be able to get back to them. Not sure. We have confirmation they're hearing us in Utah tonight. We got stations listening in Colorado and up in Washington. They'll have to see what the E-skip conditions are tonight. OTR, Central California, looking for radio number 4.
25.
25 as radio 4. You found another one?
Well, might as well do. I can't let a night go by without checking in a sonar. Sonar Model G. We have 8-channel transmit with a VFO and talking on a non-powered SPAT. Big old SPAT non-powered mic, in-mic. Anyway, everything seems to be working okay, and by golly, this is the one that does have the option to get the internal speaker, because I think that was an option. Because my other Model G that I have here doesn't have one, so you have to plug it in. I think they were designed for mobile rigs. So sometimes why would you have a internal speaker? Did I say internal mic? I didn't mean internal mic. Internal speaker when you could have an external speaker and have it face to you.
when you're cruising down Belmont Avenue on a Saturday night in your 1965 Impala. Back to you.
This should be a perfect radio for the 65 Impala. Nice big metal radio for your metal dash. And they had a cruise night, or they're having a cruise night. I can't remember the date. It probably already happened, and it was down Fulton. Maybe it's tonight. I guess Fulton, before my time here in Central California, Fulton was the cruise area before they built the mall in 1964. From what I understand, that was the cruise street. And then in 1964, they built the mall. It went one way. They blocked the street off. And then it was Belmont. That's what I remember when I came in, was Belmont Avenue as the true cruise area. Just wonder if anybody out there cruised Belmont with their CB radio. We're showing a picture of the Sonar Model G with the big microphone. Think about your breakfast this morning, Jerry, and the piece of toast, that big, nice wheat toast you had. And who was it? It was Crazy Bob. That says that's the piece of toast microphone. It looks like a big piece of bread there. So I agree with that. Big audio, big sound. Sonar's always sounding good. Give us another transmission. See if you can make it out of California with the next one.
I have no idea if I can make it out of California. I'm just lucky to make it down to from my location to your location. But anyway, talking across with Big Mike, and I almost mounted one of these in my 67 Oldsmobile 442 that I restored, and what happened? I just got an offer on that car. I couldn't refuse. It never happened, and I'm kind of glad I did, because I didn't know what to do with the antenna. So anyway, the Sonar Model G. I mean, it's a pretty simple radio, but I think it was really designed as a mobile, very compact, and anyway, at least it's working, and back to you, Dennis.
It's working great. It sounds excellent. The Sonar Model G. I don't have an exact manufacture date. $229.50 was the typical price that you would find that from your local distributor. And a good deal. That was a win-win situation. You give somebody a product that they want. You get a little cash in hand. You don't have to worry about where to put the antenna. An offer you can't refuse. I got an offer that I could not refuse long ago on Bozo Control, and I thought I was in the money. And then they pulled, the buyer pulled that 3-day return thing on me, and so he is back with us. But that's okay. I think I came out okay on that. Hello, back to the video here in Central California, the Old Tube Radio Network. Jingle Singers will be coming up. We'll go back to you for one more transmission, Jerry, here at the top of the hour. Jingle Singers coming up, and maybe Radio 5. But thanks for bringing us the Sonar tonight.
All right, Dennis. Well, thank you for the opportunity for sitting in the cushion chair, the recliner, and I was getting really comfortable here, but I'll go ahead and get out of it and see who's next, and I'll go back to the green room. Thanks, Dennis, for running the net.
All right. Glad I could do it. Hope we get lots of radios tonight, and maybe we will get some skip rolling in as well. It actually has been doing that. We'll see if it's something we can talk with. 9 o'clock, top of the hour, the ID from our famous Jingle Singers here at the Old Tube Radio Network.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, the friendliest station for you by far is known to all as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
We are looking for radio number 5. Paul, you just keep getting louder. I think we've got Radio 5 here at 9:01 Pacific Daylight Time. Hello, Paul. Over.
Yeah, I thought I'd drop in. It's kind of slow tonight, but I bet it'll pick up later on. Maybe I'll get in before the skip or that noise level comes back in. Anyway, it's my other general radio telephone that I'm just going to check in tonight. It's my Super MC11A.
You cannot beat a Super MC11A for just out of the box, always sounds good audio, and you are approving that once again. There are a few here in town and around that check-in, all sounding great, whether they have amplified microphones or not. We'll find out what you've got. Doing a good job. There's the picture if anybody is curious as to what radio makes that big sound. It looks like that and sounds like this. Over to you.
Okay, well, this is a CM3 made by General Radio. Well, it was Turner, actually. General Radio Telephone had Turner make them for it. And it's a 350C high-Z ceramic microphone inside. But I think they've done something to it that I don't know about, because it seems like it's better than the 350C. So I don't know. It's probably the radio has something to do with it. This is one of my first MC11A. I've had it for a long, long time. And it's not a very pretty radio. It's got a different meter on the front, and it's just been kind of beat up pretty good. But it seems to be working good. That's all that matters. Back to you.
On the transmit side, we wouldn't have known if you told us. That's part of the fun of being a tube radio operator. You can have a radio that's parted out. Cabinet doesn't have to be on it. You check it in. We don't know because we're going to show this beautiful picture like we're doing, unless you send us the one of the radio all in pieces. And the other fun thing, like we were talking about earlier about comparing the radio check-ins to automobiles, it's like driving a classic car. It just looks cool. It smells great, the burning dust off the tubes, just the 1960s, 70s, 50s look. So it's a cool thing all around. General Radio Telephone Super MC11A. Was this, I believe this was their last officially, for General Radio Telephone down there in beautiful Burbank, California, their last official FCC type accepted radio. 9 tubes. I'll have to go back to the list and find out what tube they got rid of. In the Super MC9, they were showing 10 tubes. In the Super MC11A, we're showing 9 tubes. So somewhere they took out a tube and probably replaced it with, this has 2 transistors. So maybe one of those transistors helped out with the tube. Of course, the ECLL 800, the mic preamp of the 12AX7A helps out a lot. And Paul, who's a great operator, is helping us too with Radio 5. Back to you.
Yeah, they really had a good radio going here. This thing, it's before they sold out the Telex, and then they made the 12, which didn't make it. So this was, I think this was their quality radio for the whole thing. They had a lot of ones, but this is the top of the whole thing. Thanks a million for checking it in, Dennis. I sure appreciate it.
And thanks for bringing it by. We always enjoy the glow-in-the-dark radios here on the Old Tube Radio Network. That's how we got our name. The breeze is finally coming through the window, down to 82 degrees, and I have not, what do we say, de-electrified, proofed the whole system here yet. And that's what happened last week. We got this nice little breeze that turned into gale force winds and got that little 10-second power drop that dumped our video out prematurely. So I am starting to worry as the wind is coming up again. You can see the flora and fauna behind me. It feels nice. We're keeping our fingers crossed that there are no electrical mishaps here on the Old Tube Radio Network. Looking for radio number 6. And 25, hello, Jerry. Let me go to the SWL list here quickly as Mr. Cobra. Mike is waving a hand here to all of us on Channel 11 and the world at oldtuberadio.net. Hi, Mike. Hi, Mr. Cobra. Thanks for checking in. I'll get you on the big board officially here as we go over to, what did I say, radio number 6 and SWL 25. Hello, Jerry.
I tell you what, this radio doesn't have a break receiving, so I'm not sure if another radio was trying to check in, so I was being patient. But anyway, if I'm clear, man, I'll check in the General Radio Telephone MC5 from downtown Burbank, California. And might as well make it a because Paul already checked in too. It looks like it's just a Paul and Jerry show tonight. So back to you.
Boy, sounds good, Jerry.
Yeah, I'll take any show that gets us the quality and the top amount of radios checking in at 9:07. We'll officially log it in here, Pacific Daylight Time. That is Jerry on the MC5, the Master Control 5 from General Radio Telephone. Those who like Burbank and all things General Radio Telephone are enjoying the program tonight. We will show a photo from the collection of SWL 45. So we'll see Paul's radio, but we'll hear your audio. Back to you, Jerry.
All right, yes, thank you. And hello, Paul, and boy, thanks for the help. And actually, the direction. I will say that, the direction. So, anyway, by the way, Jim, thanks for the plug on the 10-meter stuff, 28.445, anyway, thanks, I think that's thanks for the plug there. That's very cool. And, sounds like the conditions on 10 meters may be, I'll be able to hear some other people out there. So, out there, what I mean by out there, outside of our normal group, which everyone is supposed to say. Very cool. Anyway, the General Radio MC5, boy, I tell you what, it's been a good radio, and I know it was worthwhile, but it was kind of a progress or a project, I should say, to get it back on the air. And here it is. Back on the air, I think. According to the meters, it's working, and by golly, everything's what I was going to say. Anyway, thank you, Dennis.
Back to me in the studio. Sounds good. The audio just quite isn't as clear as some of the other Master Control series that I've checked in, but it is nice and loud from your location, the MC5. 1962, when that first came out, they did that with 7 tubes. The 10-tube MC9, Super MC9, the 9-tube Super MC11, 11A series, and the 7 tubes, all 6-volt tubes. 1972, the MC5, their most advertised radio. There's a schematic for that radio over at oldtuberadio.com, and before you go, we always like to mention that was the last General Radio Telephone that had what was called the tone signal. You might be able to coerce Jerry into demonstrating what a tone signal is, and that was replaced the next year in the next model, the MC6, with the bullhorn, allow you to do a little PA stuff. But in the meantime, you could do the tone signal, and it might sound like this. Back to you.
Before we do that, Dennis, you said I'm not clear, so I'm saying maybe it might be, okay, I'm a little closer to the mic, if that helps, or I'm backing off of the mic, that helps. So,
Very good, TR.
you said it's not clear, so I need to understand what that means.
All right, you are plenty loud, plenty of volume. I need to do replay. I think I could do that. I should do my own replay, and you'll hear it. It just has... It doesn't have that sharpness in the audio, the nice clarity that I'm hearing on some of the other radios. How would I describe it? The other problem is it may be because you're down in my noise level a little bit. If you were, because Paul says, Paul's hearing you great. So there's no problem that way. But compared to, say, the Sonar or your General Radio Telephone, there's just a bit of fuzz around the edges. I don't think it's flat topping. I don't think it's clipping. The volume, the gain, the modulation percentage is there. Not quite sure. I even tried listening in sideband, and it's possibly something internal, but it isn't something that's a deal killer. And as we found out earlier, I am not allowed to say that anybody's radio sounds awful, and that's certainly you're not even close to that category. Over.
Okay, then. So anyway, I turned up the mic gain on this a little bit, and you know what? I haven't checked the battery because I am talking on a Howard Turner Plus 3B microphone, and so but I haven't. So I didn't know that battery could be dead or going down. So that could be the problem. I'm not sure. Anyway, thanks for checking in, and I will demonstrate the tone signal on this particular radio. Hang on just a second.
All right, those looking at the video or seeing the picture, there's a switch just below the S meter in the center of the unit. That is the tone signal. And I believe what Jerry has to do, he either has to key the radio and flip the switch, or he flips the switch and it keys the radio. He'll let us know. But the general radio telephone MC5 tone signal coming up. That is a perfect example of the tone signal. That's how I remember it. That cadence, that oscillation, there are different oscillation wave forms that come out of that, but that one is the classic, so you don't have to touch a thing. And do you, to initiate that, do you just key the microphonium and flip the switch, or do you flip the switch only? Over.
It's a spring-loaded switch just below the S meter, like you said, very accurately described. And you just hold it down, but it's spring-loaded. You don't even touch the microphone. So anyway, Dennis, thanks for checking it in.
All right, there's not a thing wrong with the tone signal, that's for sure. And that sounds good. In fact, there's not a thing wrong at all with that. Radio 6, the MC5 general radio telephone, doing a good job. Waving a hand to our listeners out in Northeast Georgia. That, of course, is Butterbean and the gang out there. Thanks for watching the video, listening in. Jingle singers are ready, so let's head over to the other studio before we listen for who would be next. Radio number 7. And here we go.
You're listening in the latest style at
27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio.
In wonderful
Fresno, California.
Break OTR.
And the break OTR, let's go over to the SWL list. Go ahead, sir.
24 checking in.
SWL 24. Hello, Joseph. I'm going to bring up the list. Page 1 for those playing the home game. And the X in the square here on a very nice, whether you're indoors or outdoors, a Saturday evening here on the Old Tube Radio Network. Thanks for checking in.
No problem. Off to bed now.
All right, yeah, the sun is down. It gets harder when it starts staying lighter and lighter. You have to go to bed early, and people are barbecuing and swimming in the pool next door, and you're going to sleep. Thanks. And let's stay on the SWL list, the break OTR. Go ahead, please.
61, checking in, Dennis.
As always, sounding good here into Midtown Fresno. SWL 61 over on page 3, the Copenhagen Kid. Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, sir. I looked around at my bike and it's done.
Well, you know where to find us on a Saturday night.
Yeah, for it. Thank you, sir.
The noise floor is coming up. Could that mean E-Skip is on its way? I'm not sure. Looking for Radio 7. And Stan, SWL00, I agree with you, Stan. That is it's got the perfect waveform. Some of them are slow, some of them are, so I'm not sure what generated that. If there was a tube or, say a internal control where you could change the frequency, the beat frequency on that. But I agree with you. Jerry called the turkey call back in the day. Here on the West Coast, they used to call it a Tweety bird. So I guess it always seemed to have something to do with a bird of some sort, and maybe that is why the FCC didn't like it. Well, I know why they didn't like it, because you could probably figure out a way. He said it was a spring-loaded switch, but you could probably figure out a way to set that switch and put something, a pencil or something in there to keep that switch going and do some, what do we call, malicious interference, which we never do here on the Old Tube Radio Network. Looking for Radio 7. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to make my video more of a, what do they call it, a video gate. Like the guys do, like DD21, they've got the radio with the S-meter. Get another camera here, maybe an HD camera, get a decent S-meter and have it up in the corner here so people can see what's happening as radios check in. When they check in here in Central California, OTR listening.
Hey, Dennis.
This is the basic Dennis, over.
I figured it was. Have you messed around in any of the amateur bands recently?
No, I've been super busy. I have not done any. I have not done any transmitting, that's for sure, and receiving has been minimal at best. Kind of listening. What I've been trying to do is listen for the high fidelity guys on 20 meters, and I haven't heard any of that. I haven't heard any really good AM activity on the 10 meter AM window. I did hear some AM guys on 70, what's the 40 meter frequency? 72, 90, 93, at least here on the West Coast. So amateur radio wise, I have been a little on the weak side, over.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's just conditions haven't been very good, and just time too. But I was just playing around the last hour or so, and 20 meters is actually still have some life on it. It was really lively during the gray line, I guess, but there's still a guy on 14240 over in Flagstaff, and he's still hitting stations all over the place, and he's like 10 over here.
Yeah, it's always fun when the band is wide, because you'll hear the guys, I'll call them local, that are close to us, like Flagstaff and in Nevada and things that you'd think, well, that would be like a 40-meter contact during the day. And then you hear who they're talking to. Then the band changes, and then you get the guys farther out, and you lose the closest station. So it's always fun when you can hear everybody. The other thing, sometimes early at night or late at night when we are in the full force of Cycle 25 and that band, that 20 meters is open all night, Then you hear the fun stuff. You hear South Africa talking to New York. You'll hear everything. It's just really, really fun to listen in. So always, as an SWL, that's the fun thing about having the extra frequencies to listen to, and why one would want to think about perhaps advancing their radio skills into the amateur radio world. It's not that hard. A lot of areas have tests and exam sessions, study areas to help you get your, what's the first license? I'm not novice, it's technician class, and then go on. So if you've been thinking about it, a good thing, because it's going to be fun, and the bands, as Mark has found out, will be getting better and better and better for the next, 7-8 years. So now's a good time.
We're back on the upswing now?
Well, I think we're right at the bottom. When you look at the reports from the ARRL, there are still many days of zero sunspots, but I'm pretty sure we're on the let's go to the upside, but who knows how long this little dip will roll. And I haven't heard anyone pontificating about what they think cycle 25 will be. 24 was not that great, I guess, compared to the other two before that, but perhaps 25 might be nice.
Here's hoping. I'm just, I enjoy HF, that's for sure, and then DX on top of that. But yeah, I was just thinking, you mentioned SWLs and people maybe moving into amateur radio and that. But man, it's not quite the same. But there's a number of stations now on the internet, right? SDR.org or whatever, and you can go on and you have a receiver there, and they're all over the world, and you can kind of listen in and see what's going on and hear the conditions in different areas. But if not, nothing else, just do some SWL and on your computer there if you don't have anything else to use. It's pretty interesting.
It is very interesting. In fact, SWL 44, and this was weeks ago, so the URL has long since scrolled off my screen here, but Ray 360 had a link up to an SDR receiver that's here on the West Coast using a really good antenna. You probably have to go to the main page here and scroll down. And I did that one night and was listening in to some of the 75 meter guys, and boy, that was kind of fun. So like you mentioned, there are enough of them out there. If you find the URLs, get in that you can use somebody else's equipment and nice antennas to figure out what's going on, or give yourself a radio check. That's always fun to see how well you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. You can do that, and I've also heard of guys too where their transmits stronger than their receive. So if they're working a really weak one and they're having trouble copying on their end, they'll kind of use that with their transmission and get the best of both worlds.
That's a helpful way to do it, unless you are streaming, like we do here, and hear yourself that way wherever you might be. But fun stuff, and a lot of possibilities, and the conditions you don't have to have this solar cycle to go down and chat during the day, typically on 40, or at night on 75. There's also what's the new digital modes. You don't need much power or any conditions for that. That's the I hear you in my noise level stuff. Lots of good things going on. So we always encourage people to get their feet wet in the amateur side. And then like Mark does, there are fun ways to go QRP. That is low power, weak signal in remote locations. And you just never know who is listening and how well you might do with flea power. It's kind of fun. I want to say hello to X4000. Beaconing out of Brentwood, checking in here at the Old Tube Radio Network tonight. And I have not been listening to... We did it one week when I tuned up to the 10-meter band. I'll have to get my other receiver going with the other antenna. I'm listening for the beacons. That's a good way to tell what's happening as well. You're tuned, listening, watching the Old Tube Radio Network. 27085 is our frequency, channel 11. And we are transmitting out of Central California, beaconing across the universe at oldtuberadio.net. The jingle singers telling us about the magic that is Old Tube Radio.
What are the magic numbers?
27.085 megahertz, channel 11.
Are the magic letters?
OTR.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Radio Magic
Old Tube Radio.
for you.
Maybe the skip is in. That's where everybody is. They're shooting skip on sideband or moved up to 10 meters or down to 20, 40, 75, listening to the AM guys. You can do your own AM with your CB radio here at 27085, looking for Radio 7. Conditions around, we've been heard in Utah. Just got a report from British Columbia, 357, waving a hand as he often does. Says we're just barely breaking through the noise up there as the skip moves between California, Arizona, Nevada, and who knows what else. The Old Tube Radio Network, we're standing by. Also report for... Mark was talking about, and I failed to mention this, 6 Meters is also a great band when the E-skip nighttime condition. That will get you excited. You will all of a sudden have a 30 over signal coming in from a grid square that is not anywhere close to where you are. You get a nice 2-minute conversation, and away they go. And somebody else comes in at 30 over when the band is really nice. Getting some reports that 6 Meters is open from Iowa to Northern California right now. Thank you, Mr. Juliet Whiskey John, reporting that 6 Meters is open. So probably a lot of you out there testing the waters, finding out what's happening on the frequencies tonight. Oh, we appreciate the reports. Back in the big opening of 2000, 2001, 2002, the AM window for 6 Meters, people have the old AM rigs, or maybe the new rigs with AM on it, it was 50.400, I believe. I hope I'm saying that. I'm hoping I'm doing that right from memory. 51.4? I think it's 50.400. I made a couple of AM contacts. It was cool. I would go on 10 meters... We'd make a contact, and we'd say, well, 6 is open, let's try it. We'd go up on 6, and an hour or two later, I'd hear the same station from far off on the AM window on 6. So that's always fun for those of you AM enthusiasts trying to get a contact in the AM window on 6 Meters. So just, you got to find somebody else that's got an AM rig up there listening. Just checking out one of those live 6-meter propagation maps showing Kansas to Oregon, Oregon to Las Vegas. So 6 meters is opening up.
I saw those maps, but I'm not hearing anything where I'm at.
Yeah, we're getting to Mr. Stahl to break open a hole with his setup out there.
That's what he does. I heard that. When did I hear that? On Wednesday night, the 10-meter net. Ken or somebody, OIB, was something that broke up at Mike's place. I don't know if he's fixed it yet, but I guess he actually didn't have 6 meters.
Hear him down on 42. I think there's kind of a DX window. I'm going to say like 7190 or 7160. Down in that area on occasion. I know his voice. And typically at night, you don't hear the local guys on 40 meters, and he's probably on one of his big, long boom, 4-element beams pointed somewhere. But, man, you can tell that he's in there. And he'll be the weakest signal, and he'll be talking to some other stations way far off. But sometimes having a great antenna is a good thing, but as you know, if the conditions are right and you've got a good listener, you don't need a big antenna.
No, but it never hurts. Yeah, I have sat and just listened to him talk, work the world, literally, on 40 and probably some other bands. Yeah, he's a pretty interesting guy. Mr. M squared, I guess you'd call him. But, yeah, I think with the setup he's got there in his location, he can overcome poor conditions.
And make your own conditions. Yeah, Mr. M squared. The old KLM antennas, when I first got licensed, they were still manufacturing the KLM antennas, and Mike is the M out of the KLM, and they were the top of the kind of high-end antennas. And when they disbanded, I guess Mike took over with M squared and did his thing there. OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network. We are looking for Radio 7. Just notice my video. I look very orange. I need to do a white balance or something. We are. Oh, you know what? Let me check to see if anybody's made a comment here before I unkey. Stan mentioned. I think we have a schematic of the MC5, but he mentioned that the pitch, the frequency of the tone signal that we heard from Jerry's MC5 is controlled by a value capacitor. I figured it was something that you could probably go in there and change if you wanted to. So just like the Eagle Ping, changing the value of the cap, you could go up and down, whether in frequency or in time, the amount of, your oscillation, how many times it's going to go whoop whoop per second. Sound is generated by 2 NE960 neon bulbs. You can't find any info about it. I'll have to check that out. I'll have to ask Harvey when he comes on if he's ever worked on the neon bulbs in the early MC series to get those Tweety birds going.
One of these days I'll get this T-Berry back on the air.
Is it just need a good talking to, or is it one of those things where it's just too far away to hook up?
It's something went south on it a number of months ago, and I haven't even pulled the cover yet. I don't know if it's a tube or what, but I forget what it is. And I still have that car sitting out in the garage that's been there for like 3 years that I need to tear into some year. But yeah, I've got two broken ones right now.
All right. Your car has only been sitting for 3 years. I'm not going to tell you how long I've had one sitting around here. And it has an antenna. It has my bumper antenna that I used for my FT101 when I went mobile with that long, long ago. It has my homebrew antenna that I took a CB mount, and then I made a 19-inch piece of wire for 2 meters, and then I made another smaller piece, or a piece like 6 inches off of that. So I used the base, but I had my 440 and 2-meter antenna. It's still sitting on the back of that. And so, yeah, projects, plus a lot of broken radios. Our British Columbia station, I heard the whistle. They were doing that infamous CB whistle song, I Can't Whistle. but I've heard it for 40 years. He just put on the video, I heard my whistle. So I heard it too. And it caught my ear because it's that classic tune. I don't even know what the name of it is, but you hear it everywhere. You hear it on Channel 11, Channel 6. I've heard it everywhere for 40 years. There are various versions depending on where you're at, but 357, using the stream, we heard you.
Where was that whistle coming from?
British Columbia.
Oh my God, that's spectacular. I missed it.
And then John, the mighty JW, mentions that the FT8, and that's what I was trying to think of earlier. FT8 was the really weak signal digital mode. 50.313 was the FT8. Maybe it's 51400 for the AM, but I have not been on 6 for a while. I actually have one of the lawn chair antennas up on the other situation here that I don't have the coax run into. So maybe it's time to see if that actually works. I'm going to have to get the little MFJ antenna analyzer, but I have one of those lawn chair antennas. It was made for 6 meters that supposedly works. The Old Tube Radio Network, let's go to the Jingle Singers. And we are looking for Radio 7. A lot of people out enjoying the nice weather that we are having here tonight. What else is happening? Mother's Day coming up tomorrow. School, final exams. The high schools and colleges here, at least on the West Coast, are finishing up grade schools and things in a couple of weeks. So a lot of people doing stuff for that. And then the Jingle Singers, of course, that do this.
Let's do some spelling.
OTR. 27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio. Old Tube Radio.
And Ray says we're still kind of fading in and out of Utah as well. It's a wannabe condition tonight for sure.
I was talking about a KAR radio before, not a CAR.
KARK, was it is it KARR or KAAR? The Car D phone?
Yeah, one of those two.
Who did I used to talk to? He was out of North Dakota. I should look at my log, and AM, and he would be talking. It wasn't a car. I think it was on a Citiphone. It's a guy used to, when the band is open on 10 meters. HKW, I can't remember his call. That's how long it's been since I've done any AM work. And I always caught this guy, and I caught him on his Citiphone SS. He was in his car, and I'm sure it was running barefoot. He's waiting for his wife to come out of the grocery store, and he was calling CQ on the 10-meter AM window and talk to him in that way. The nice thing about the 10-meter AM window when the band is in and you're listening on 11 meters and it's just this 20 dB over S9 heterodyne on all channels, the band is really open. You go up to the 10-meter window to 2900 to 29100, and the conditions are the same, except there are 12 stations. There are not 1200, there are 12 stations. And it is super easy, one, to have a conversation without getting interrupted, and two, to do it with about 5 watts. So you just got to find your spot. I guess it's like fishing. You got to find out where the fish are and then get rid of everybody else.
Doesn't sound like a beehive.
No, it's always amazing. Go to that AM window up there, and it's like 12 people. You go down to 11 meters, there's 1,200 people, all using the same conditions.
Hey, let me know if you get close to where, if you need an analyzer. I've got a pretty good, what the heck is it? It's on MFJ. It's Rig Expert, and I know it does 50. It does HF, and it goes up to I think 140 something. And it'll do 2 meters. So if you get closer, you need something, just let me know.
Okay, that's handy sometimes if you've got the antenna sitting around for a while and you get the coax hooked up, and it'll just tell you it's like, yeah, we're in the ballpark here, and they don't have to worry about it. I suppose you can, I can always go to the SWR bridge and tune around at the top of the bottom of the band and say, yeah, it seems to be working, but sometimes that tells you if you need to do a little peeking and tweaking. Hello to Taft. Taft is listening in out there in oil country. We've got some Taft fans that check in occasionally. SWL 45, Kelly, I believe, is from Taft. Hello to Fish Camp. Freeport to Illinois, still in the front row there, sounding good. Hagerstown, Maryland. New York is in. Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, Indiana, Southern California's in. Crazy Bob and the group in New Jersey, hanging in there. Pottstown, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida. All the areas that we can't get on the eSkip. Maybe all the stations in British Columbia, Washington, Oregon are actually listening in on the air to see if they can catch us. Hello to Oakland. And the Old Tube Radio Network just hanging out here. We're having a good time, enjoying the great weather, and looking for radio number 7. And my grooviest contact, I'll use a 60s term here, my grooviest amateur radio contact was up on 10 meters. There was a station calling CQ. This is the last cycle, I guess. He was calling CQ, and I, listening around and say, oh, great, not too many people here. And he said he was transmitting, let me see if I got this right. He was transmitting on AM. So he was in the 2900. I think he had a modified CB radio, but it didn't have a receive, but the transmitter's okay. But he was listening on FM because he had a scanner. So he said he was, you found his transmit channel, but he said he was listening on 29300 to 29350. And then I had to quickly, because the radio I have, the FT920 does split frequency, but I had not done split in so long, I forgot how to do it. So I'm looking through the manuals. Oh man, how do you do split frequency? Because I had to stay on 29100 or wherever he was on the transmit AM side, but I had to get my receiver. No, he's listening. No, I had to get my transmitter on FM. There we go. He's listening. So I had to get my transmitter on 29300 FM, and I also had to have a receiver listening on, which I already had, on 29100 to get it to do the split. So when I keyed, it would go to the FM. Otherwise, I'd be turning the dial. I finally got this set up because the guy was just calling CQ forever. And when I finally had the conversation with the guy, he was in a cabin somewhere in a remote area. I'd have to look at my log. It's in my log. I don't recall where he was at. And he had been there for a week, and he said he'd been calling CQ off and on for a week, and I was the first station he actually had talked to. I guess it would put up with the nonsense of doing the split frequency and pulling him out of the mud, but he was on AM, and that's why I was listening for AM stations. And he said he just, occasionally do whatever he was doing outside and then come back into the cabin and call CQ for 10 or 15 minutes or an hour or however long it was, and do the split frequency thing, because he had a transmitter with no receiver and a receiver with no transmitter. But that's the kind of fun stuff you can do if you have ingenuity and a lot of patience. And Mark knows about that, lots of patience.
That is very groovy. In fact, that is, if I can use the words of Link from the Mod Squad, that contact was solid.
How's this contact? 901 Central Washington.
Hi, 901 Central Washington, the Old Tube Radio Network here in Central California, where we listen for and talk about the classic tube radios. We're also streaming live at oldtuberadio.net. So if you want to give yourself an audio gate and you've got some internet connectivity, go to oldtuberadio.net. But sounding really good here in Central California. Thanks.
I got the old tube radio part. I own two 901 Yeezys. This one works all right, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds great. What was it, the 901, the 301, the 107? I think they were all kind of in that general area.
Yeah,
I was up on 38. Somebody said I should check in down here. Sounding good up here in Union Gap, Washington.
All right, thank you, sir. The 901 doing a good job. S9 at the peaks on the AM side, and of course, a little bit of fading as we might expect. The Old Tube Radio Network, we're here every Saturday, and again, we do the streaming audio at oldtuberadio.net to give yourself a radio check. Thanks for waving a hand.
You carry on. Thanks for letting me check in with you. Thanks for Washington.
And a nice audio, nice AM audio, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The Yaesu's always had good audio, but you got to be careful. You can overdo it real easy, but that's nice and smooth and sounds great.
Well, I hear you. I've been doing this about 35 years, so I think we got a little bit of a handle on it. But I didn't know if there was a check-in down here on Saturday nights from 8 to 10. So that was interesting to find out. So like I said, here to check in. You have a great evening and a great rest of your net. KG7.
Also, is the 901, if you're still hearing me, is the 901 a hybrid? You've got a tube transmitter, or is it all solid state?
Yes, it is. I got a 101 I could put in line.
All right, well, I think it's got the sweep tubes. I don't think it has 6146. So the transmitter we're hearing, you actually qualify. The transmitter we're hearing from the 901 there is actually a tube transmitter. So that kind of fits the bill here at the Old Tube Radio Network.
1D, and I've got a 901 DM. That one's on 6, so it is what it is. That's got a 101 so it's all good. We enjoy them.
All right, well, we're hearing your transmitter side on the 901. It sounds good here.
Hopping in and out on me, so it's hard to get a good copy on you. You're not? It's not so great.
All right, well, hang on here. Conditions are rough, but they are in. Thanks for waving a hand. And anyone wanting to know what a 901 looks like, I think we're showing the DM, but there is the video. I'll go ahead and pop it up on the tube. That is the, oh boy, what is the year on that? Like the mid-70s. There was a whole style of Yaesu radios that they came out with around the 101 series, where they started trying to solid-state things, but it looks a lot like the 101, the 901, the 107. 102 was a different radio, a little bit later in the early 1980s, but probably the late 70s, early 80s. There's the 901. You had to tune and load, had the 11-meter crystal position where you could put in the multiplier crystal and get the 11-meter band, 10-meter band. Great audio, a good sideband radio, a little tricky sometimes on sideband, but always a great AM radio, and sounding good here on the Old Tube Radio Network.
I thought that was Harvey.
So did I. When it was at S9, I said, okay, Harvey's got something that sounds good. Of course, with the 901, you could trick your friends into making them think that you were Skip. And I believe SWL1 used to do that. There's a carrier control somewhere, the little ring, at least on the 101 series, has a carrier control, and you take that little lever and you'd slowly move the carrier control down and up, and you'd move away from your microphone and close to the microphone as you moved your signal up and down with your carrier control, and people would think you were Skip.
Got me wondering.
So yeah, we'll call that, that's a tube transmitter. That's a hybrid. We got some a tube radio check in there. Also, we do archive, and those listening, we do archive the audio, so you can go to oldtuberadio.net. There's an archive button. If you click on that, look for today's date or the date that you were transmitting or thought you were transmitting, And whether it was during the SWL check-in or the Tube Radio check-in, we're in the Tube Radio check-in time, and you'll be able to load that into your favorite media net web player and hear when you scroll to the appropriate point, hear your audio playback. We are looking for Radio 7. And Timtron, who's you're in the wrong part of the state, Tim. Sometimes that happens. We'll hear the guys talking to Bakersfield, talking over us here in Central, talking to Bakersfield, which is about 100 miles south of us. We'll hear them talking to Sacramento, 190 miles north of us, but they won't be talking to us. So I think that's what happened there with 901. Nice, interesting evening here on the old Tube Radio Network. Got about 5 minutes left. I'm not going to stay up too late, even though it's like Skip is in. I've got a really early call in the morning, so just when the band opens up, but encouraging others to go up. We have a big side band contingent here in the Central Valley on 38 lower. Anyone hearing us on the AM side, feel free to pop up to 38. I'm sure we got a crew up there here locally that would like to chat with you, and the conditions might be a bit better on sideband. All right, those watching the video or listening to the net stream just heard me. I quickly, my apologies if someone made a call. I quickly tuned up to 10 meters, and indeed there was a beacon at 28,206 or 207. I didn't stay long enough to get the call, whether it was a 7, probably a 7 call, but the beacons are in on 10 meters, so the band is open up there as well.
Break OTR.
Break OTR. This is indeed the Old Tube Radio Network. Hello.
Well, greetings from the radio patio. How about a Browning for your listening pleasure?
My listening pleasure and others around the Universal Media Netweb. Bring up the Browning Labs database, and we'll go back to you for the skinny on the transmitter receiver.
Well, this is a not so convenient radio to lug outside from the radio lounge. It's a Browning R27S23, 2 pieces, two rather heavy pieces.
Yeah, that is quite a trek. That's almost like putting a thing in the car and strapping whatever your transceiver up and going out and giving us a transmission, to carefully pull the transmitter and receiver and affiliated connecting cables and power cords and microphones, especially on something old, when you hope that you don't jiggle that one little wire that's not supposed to be moved and things go haywire. It is sounding good, so you have made the trek correctly to the radio lounge. Over.
So to the radio patio. Good. So I have to give you a compliment. I think by my describing kind of what was on the front of the radio, I think you determined that this was a Series 2 R27 S23. And for the very first time, I can actually confirm that. I always feel really guilty because I just always have a loss for words after trying to describe these radios year after year after year. Something new to say about them. But, I don't know if there's a drum roll you can, drum up. But I can confirm that this is a Series 2 because someone on the back, it's got to be from the factory, I would imagine. On the S23, on the very back of it, someone stamped the Series 2 right kind of at the bottom and the center of it, underneath a couple of the many wires that are floating around in back of this guy. So, hey, this is a Series 2, at least the transmitter is.
I was checking to see if there was, sometimes we have the front side, back side photos, but I don't see one here, and see if that was something that was common on the Series 2, but I think maybe, like you said, someone stamped that just so they would remember that. If you don't have the Series 2 stamp, the way you tell is some of the difference anyway. Series 2, larger meters, larger than what? I don't know, but the neon modulation indicator, that's the big one, and the lighted on the air indicator on the transmitter. So you are good to go on the Series 2.
Oh, good. Okay. So I'm quickly going from being pretty excited after discovering this Series 2 stamp that's on the back of the transmitter. I'm quickly moving from that excitement to, to be honest with you, some sadness. I know on some collector cars, I know you were talking about a cool car that you got floating around there apparently. Another listener was talking about another cool car that's been sitting for a few years. I know on, at least in the car collector market, matching numbers is always a cool thing. And definitely a plus as far as the value of this automobile is concerned. I don't know if I've just accidentally discovered that perhaps my transmitter and receiver do not match. I don't want to divulge any secret information, but right above on the transmitter, there looks like there's a 6-digit number that's stamped right above the fuse on that guy. It begins with 543, I think it is. And then if you look on the back of the receiver, right above a phone plug or external speaker plug, there's another serial number. I'm assuming it's a serial number that's stamped in there. That's 552, and I'm not going to tell you the other 3 numbers. What's going on here? Should these numbers match?
Well, I think at that time they were not always sold as a set. Although they're showing a price of $359, but it might have been possible to actually buy the transmitter and not the receiver, or buy the receiver and not the transmitter if you wanted to buy them separately. I think the earlier ones were like that, where you could pair them up and match them that way. Harvey might know a little bit more about that, and since they're being manufactured separately, they just say, okay, well, here's one and here's one, rather than this is a set, and we tune them up as a matched pair and work on it that way. So I would not be all that worried just yet on the serial numbers matched sets, because we could be reading more into this. But I understand what you say about the automobiles, and they had engines that matched, and the California engines and non-California engines, and items like that. So you can tell if it was pieced in part. That's an interesting question, though, so I will keep that in mind if anybody knows that. Some of our listeners might know as well from the early Brownings. We were, in fact, let me put a picture up. We're talking with Mike, who is on his original Browning Eagle. That's the R27 S23 combination. We're just wondering if they were always put together as a set, meaning that you could tell if you had the original issue because you would have a matching number or some number between the transmitter and receiver that would tell you that this was the way it was originally sold. Not sure. It sounds good, though. Your pings, to me, sounds a little different now that you are on the radio, not the radio lounge, the radio patio. And it could be because you do not have four walls surrounding you to create some type of an echo or reverberation effect for the sound to come out. It has a nice pure ping tone to it.
Okay, well, I heard that extra ping. Yeah, I couldn't get the normal ping because I was in back of the radio, and I couldn't do this elaborate ballet that the next fellow is going to, what he's capable of. So I'm going to back out of here. Thanks for letting me check it in front of radio. I got to say, though, yeah, I'm trying to make a comment on what side is more enjoyable look at, the front or the back side. I guess the front side it's got more colors on it. But boy, keeping in there at all the glowing tubes is pretty cool too. So, anyways, on that, I'll send it back to you. Thanks for letting me check it in.
It makes it easier to tune in and spot, but once you do that, maybe you could put it on a Lazy Susan, roll it around the front side, get everything tuned up, peaked, tweaked, spotted, make your contact, and then roll it around the backside and watch the tubes glow. Sounding good at Radio 7, SWL 47, enjoying our great weather here in the Central California area, out on his radio patio tonight as we wind down the Old Tube Radio Network. I heard a pinging breaking station. I hope you are still there. Over.
Yep, I am. Found a serial number deal. I'm in Browning. You can see Browning in some pictures. I've got some pictures of their factory. And it's like an assembly line type deal, somewhat. We'll call it assembly tables, but you know why? But so they did transmitters, and then they did receivers, etc. And I've seen a lot of Browning sets, and I've yet to find a set that had matching numbers. Not even kind of relatively close. Now on the buddies didn't quite have an assembly line that I am aware of, and they stenciled on the numbers or painted, whichever way they did it, the numbers. So it was, and I think they did that toward the end of the production of a set, and they kind of did them separately as sets when they were putting them together, while the Brownings were like this line of tables with receivers and this one's transmitters, something like that. So the buddies, you might get lucky enough to have the matching numbers. Now, I'm fortunate to have several buddies, and one of them, just one, has all three units, transmitter, receiver, and speaker box on the airlight box with matching numbers. A couple of them have a transmitter and a receiver with matching numbers, but the speaker does not have a number on it. Now, the speaker had a tag that was put on it, and some transmitters and receivers had tags that were stuck on. So they could get them to match. Some were painted on. So I have an example of each. But Brownings, I believe, if somebody's got matching numbers, that is like the rarest of rare.
That's what I would think for the Brownings, and the way I have the price point listed, at least on the 1964 series on the Browning, it's listed as a set at $359. But I often come across the Browning or the Buddy bases listed as a price for the transmitter and a price for the receiver. So it sounds like what they could have done is if they were selling it as a set, somebody says, yeah, I want the transmitter receiver, they would pull one off here and pull one off there, and then, like you said, either match or write in the number saying, we're selling this guy and this guy as a set of number 217, and away it would go. As on Brownings, maybe they didn't, since on the Brownings, perhaps you could do the same thing, just buy a transmitter receiver, but it wasn't really specific. Once they sold it, it didn't matter. They didn't say, okay, we're pulling this one and this one, and we're making a set out of it, where Buddy, it sounds like they might have done that, even though I show price points separate for the transmitters and receivers, but I'm not showing that at least on the R27 S23, but I'm pretty sure in the earlier receivers and transmitters where you can mix and match, that's probably why. So maybe we've either solved a mystery or we've created a mystery, and something tells me in that mystery you might even have Radio 9 for us. Over.
Golden Beagle R68T68 by Browning Laboratories. Browning medallion on the back of the U104. Unamplified from the factory, and as far as I can tell, original cartridge. This came as a set from a local person at a garage sale that said TV radio for sale. And I got the transmitter, receiver, microphone, and the 180 transmitter helper all together. And none of the numbers match. So, you know, I don't know, I just remember seeing a set where they match, or even kind of even relatively close. Anyway, I'll let you go. I'm going to go on in, and I'll be back in 2 weeks. And hopefully by then I'll have something else to check in. I'm too busy the last week or so. I'm actually putting up a 2-liter 440 base antenna. So Cliff can hear me all the time on Simplex, not just when the weather doesn't permit. Anyway, we'll let you go. Catch you in 2 weeks.
All right, we'll be here in 2 weeks. We're doing some fundraising at the radio stations on Fridays, and I think we're doing a Saturday thing as well, but I should be, that's at the end of the month. I think it'll be done before net time, but I may be one of those ones where I just swing in here at the last minute. But I should be around. You were actually Radio 8. I misspoke. Radio 8 sounding good. The Browning R68 T68 Golden Eagle combination. Thanks for bringing it by. And I will sign out now. I'll take one more check for any check-ins before we do sign out. But appreciate everybody who stopped by today and shared their radios and information and the stations listening from afar. We've heard Utah and Colorado and Washington, British Columbia. I see Alberta is listening in online. We're here in Central California, the Old Tube Radio Network, streaming at oldtuberadio.net. Thanks, Harvey. Let's see, and the Jingle Singers are tapping on the glass. It looks like they want to get out of here as well. So let me open their microphonium as they tell us.
You're tuned to
OTR, Channel 11,
right here in
Fresno, California.
Stay with us
Old Tube Radio.
and be modern.
Last call for Old Tube Radio and SWL check-ins.
You're not going to count the Yaesu?
Let's see. Did I write it down? I showed it. Oh, you know, I should count the Yaesu. That would make him 9. I thought I wrote it down, but now I look at it. That was the 901. I think I'm writing that down now. 901. I think he said it wasn't the DM. Although all the ones I was showing did have and the DM was, I think, the digital display. Yes, I'm going to count the Yaesu. Thanks for reminding me. So that takes us to 9 radios. And anybody who takes the chance to try and check in farther than... And you know what? The FCC banged their gavel again this year, and they got rid of the 155-mile rule. So any DX contacts we have are perfectly A-OK, with the FCC assuming that one is using the legal permitted 5-watt DC input, which I know Mr. 901 was. I know he was looking at his plate current there and making that Yaesu properly put out the 4 watts of power. All right, any other check-ins before we... Thank you, Mark, before we sign out. And even John Lee has mentioned he's a little spark of excitement. He wants to get the 101 fired up. I have a 101 here. In fact, when we early on did the net, my radios that I used were the Regency Imperial, the very first, the Regency double sideband Imperial was first, and then I switched over to the Yaesu FT101. That's when they had an old tube, sort of an old tube radio net in Visalia, believe it or not, and I had the really tall antenna, and we used to talk to the guys down in Visalia. That 101 was always heard down there, even on 2 watts, but I had a really nice antenna. And then I moved over to the FT980 for a while, which didn't have the receiver wasn't that great on that because of the general coverage issue, but boy, did it have a nice transmitter. Did I mention this is the last call for any stations?
Oh, God. All right, how about this?
Did we have an item of interest? We could possibly make double-digit radios here.
Okay, I'll do it. Brown. I'm listening to the Browning, and that's not good because it's not hooked up to an antenna right now, but a Robin T123B.
All right, I heard the Robin TR123B. We'll get a photo of that. The audio is a little low, but maybe it is, it's past the 10 o'clock curfew. You're out in the radio patio. Perhaps you are trying to keep the radio police from coming out and shaking their finger at you. It looks like a big green machine to me. We'll pop up a picture. We'll go back to you for transmission.
That's 1, 2, 3. Well, I can hear myself out on the patio, even though the Browning is not hooked up to the antenna right now. That's why I'm speaking kind of quietly, because I'm loud out on the patio, even though I'm in the radio lounge right now. So, yeah, Robin T123 Bravo.
All right, we've got that. That is the one with the range expand. Got a various selection of pilot lamps. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Probably 2 at once. When you transmit, something else will change. External speaker PA, and the one we're showing, I'm going to call it green. Could be a different color on your end, but it's got a little green stripe and some green inserts on the knobiums.
Okay, I can talk a little bit loud right now because I ran outside and turned off the other radio. I don't know what color it is. I'm colorblind. I can tell you it looks pretty darn good. It's just, yeah, I think this is probably the best looking radio in my collection. As far as paint and all the aesthetics is concerned, I'm not sure how you classify the audio, but visually it looks pretty good. It does not have a magic eye tube like the straight 123 does. And that's always a selling point as far as I'm concerned. But it's pretty good. There's a transmit light, I think, that's lighting up right now. Pretty blue color. Modulation lamp as well. It's not really hyperactive right now, but letting me know that I'm putting something out on the air right now.
It's putting out on the air. Good signal. probably about 70% modulated, but the audio is nice and clear, good fidelity. Robin T123 Bravo, 11 tubes, 2 transistors. This was the Panasonic chassis that was all the rage 1972 through 1976. They would have kept producing this radio had not there been the big 40 channel change, and they had to do something to make sure that people would keep buying their radios. Operator manual and a schematic at oldtuberadio.com, but even better, the radio itself and the audio that goes with it right now on the Old Tube Radio Network. Thanks for Radio 10. Give us another transmission.
Okay, my pleasure. So you said I'm 70% modulated, so in the back of my mind I'm thinking, well, you know, he was talking earlier about I guess that unspoken code of politeness where, you know, if someone's got a really crappy radio going on, you go, oh man, that audio is great, F9. You know, it's just spectacular report there. Good job. I'm wondering how much that courtesy is in play right now.
Well, you are well above the noise. I'm about an S7. You're about an S9. I was watching the meter, our infamous wiggle meter, and typically, I think if you were close to 100% modulation, I'd see a little bit of forward movement, just a wiggle or a movement, and I'm not seeing any of that. I'm certainly hearing fine. I got the headphoniums on. We are archiving that you can hear for yourself. The typical, when you're got a decent signal, that percentage of modulation is not a problem. It's when you get down into the noise somewhere else where the extra audio will help or the punchy audio will help. So there's certainly not a problem here with the amount of signal you have. In fact, some of the AM guys, one of the guys told me, was listening down on 75 AM window, where what they'll do is they'll purposely undermodulate the radio, but they will get you a full quieting signal. So they'll key up with, and you're allowed 1,500 watts PEP, which means if you're fully 100% modulated, you're like 365 watts of key down power, and then you talk, you modulate up to 150 watts, or 1,500 watts PEP. And what they'll do is they'll key up at 650 or 750 watts to give you that extra full quieting signal, but then they'll ride the audio gain down so that they'll still be around the 1,500 watt PEP. So they might be at 60 or 70% audio, but even though they're not super loud, they have that full quieting signal and the audio is pleasant and everything's fine. So that's another little trick I think the guys do to stay legal without having to scream so much, is get that resting carrier up. So there you go. I mean, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but it just reminded me to make you feel better that if you're not seeing, you know, if you're not watching your scope and you're at 100% modulation, or if you've got other, you know, asymmetrical audio modulation where you're 160%, if you've got enough carrier to the receiving station, then that's not all that much of a problem. Radio 10, the Robin T123 Bravo, looking good and sounding good. And if you take all that time to do the radio patio, we should check him in. Back to you.
All right, thank you. And for what it's worth, you're 5'9" over here. Yeah, I wish this was working a little bit better, but I guess, unfortunately, I'm embarrassed to say that from the radio lounge, sometimes if someone can even answer the question that you pose from this location, that in itself is a good audio report. So thanks for letting me check in. I got some work to do. I got to pull lots of toys back in the lounge here, so I'm off to work at 10:22 at night. Thanks. Everyone sounds great, and have a great week, folks.
All right, almost like camping. It's fun while you do it, and then you got to pull all the stuff and put it back in the boxes and sweep it out and wash it off and whatever. So be careful. We want to hear you out in the lounge again with the various radios, and we're glad that you did that tonight. The Old Tube Radio Network, real radios glowing in the dark, Central California, and we're going to be doing some counting and amounting, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, time now for the current OTR totals.
This will be the current. Wow. Oh, loud. They're loud tonight. Thank you. Thank you over in the studio. They want to get out of here. Current and final totals From our evening's radio extravaganza, everybody looking on the SWL sheets, we had 12 check-ins on page 1, 13 check-ins. I want to say check-ins and not chick-ins. 13 on 2, 11 on 3, 13 on 4 for a total of 49, I believe. Week 3 didn't add anybody new, I don't think, but we had a lot of stations that we have not heard ever checking in over the Ethernet waves. Hello, British Columbia. Heard the whistle. The infamous 357. The infamous whistle. So there is a story behind that. The da 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 da. I can't whistle. Number 1 could do it great. And various versions of that. Where did that come from? Is that a tune? I have heard that since the 60s. The little tune-up whistle. And hello, Washington, Utah. And it'll only get better, right? We like the easy e-skip check-ins because a lot of you have tube radios, as did 901 on our list tonight. Starting with radio number 1, the General Radio Telephone Super MC9. Thanks, Paul. Sounded good. Although, out of the 3, that was the one that came in third, but it was number 1 on our list tonight. Radio number 2, Jerry, SWL 25 and the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB. Ran net control with that. Nice radio. Radio 3, Paul, with his General Radio Telephone Super MC11. Not the 11A, but the 11. Nice audio. The Sonar Model G, great audio on the big loaf of bread or piece of bread. There's a loaf of bread radio. That was the E.F. Johnson. And then there's the toast, a piece of toast microphone that goes with it. That's the Sonar Model G. Thanks, Jerry. Radio 4, Radio 5, 45 on his General Radio Telephone Super MC11A. It's just hard to make those radios sound bad. The MC5 General Radio Telephone, giving us the tone call. Perfect tone call. We rate your tone call at an 11. We rate the radio tonight at an 8. The MC5 sounded good, Jerry. Thanks for bringing it by. The Browning R27 S23 Eagle from Mike out in the patio. Radio 7. The R68 T68 Browning Golden Beagle. Thanks, Harvey, for keying that one up. And the Robin T123B for Radio 10. In between, I don't have an official number for it, but our friend up there in Washington with a Yaesu 901, sounding very good. Nice audio there. So who was the Morsherd manufacturer? I want to say it was the Generals, but I think 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, the General Radio Telephone's at 4 tonight, beating out the Brownings at 3. So good job if you're a General Radio Telephone fan. If you're an old tube radio fan, you always win with the old tube radio network, as our job, our goal, our mission is to grab as many of the old classic radios as possible, and our tube radio operators and collectors help us do that each week. And we're glad they take time out of their Saturday evening activities to help us out. Special thanks to SearchLawrence.com and Frodex for keeping the Nixie tubes running, and all of you taking time out of your late Saturday evenings, early morning hours. Stations still listening in New York, New Jersey, as it goes into Sunday, Mother's Day, and we'll do it again next week. Archives will be up, but the video will stay up for a while, and again, the bands are opening up. Your 6-meter band, your 10-meter band, listen to the beacons. If you do not have your amateur radio license and are thinking about it, do it. Now's a great time. Lots of stuff to do. The bands will just be getting better. And when it gets a little bit boring on 11 meters, grab your friends and go somewhere else. But keep the radios with you. 73, everybody. Talk to you next time on the Old Tube Radio Network.
Good night. Good night.
Appreciate it, Dennis.
And we're down to 79 degrees. I think we did it.
Jeff, do we know what town that gentleman from New Jersey was coming from?
It's showing up, and this is not always correct, but he's showing Vineland. That is Crazy Bob, who runs the pre-1977 antique radio Facebook site, of which he has put a link. If you're at oldtuberadio.net and you scroll down at 10, you'll see Bob Madara, Crazy Bob. He's also a radio guy, like broadcast radio guy, and he's got his Facebook URL there. So if anybody's Facebook-oriented, let them know you're an OTR aficionado, and they'll get you signed up with that. But really, really good information on that site.
We'll find out where that is in relation to Basking Ridge. Okay, good night.
And also, there's a feature. A lot of people don't know this. If you're at oldtuberadio.net and you go to the QTH where it says the name, and you click on that QTH, it will take you to a window where you can find out more about that area, like in Vinland, New Jersey. 08360 gives you little pictures, little map. You'll know that if you're tooling along on Highway 55 from Woodbine, you're going to drive yourself right in there, and don't go too far. You'll end up in Franklin. So good stuff. And we'll catch you later. Good night, everybody. See you later on the video and the audio on the Old Tube Radio Network.